Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Red Bra Project YouTube channel. Our Woman Crush Wednesday series is continuing in light of all the COVID-19 stuff that's going on. We have always been virtual, and so we are excited that we are able to continue to bring you new guests and highlight them weekly for you. This is episode 52. It's so exciting. Renee, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. We have an incredible guest tonight that we're going to share with everybody and just kind of bring some excitement and bring everybody up a little bit.
I agree. I'm so excited to introduce our guest. She is doing a lot of similar stuff to what our goal and our mission is. And so, Summer Watson, we're so excited to have you here tonight with us. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and say hello.
Oh, hey. Okay. Thanks so much. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. I love what you're doing. I love how you're supporting women and bringing women together in community. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for joining us. How are you holding up in the current times? And where are you? You're in California, is that correct?
No, actually, okay, so I'm doing well. And I am actually in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. I grew up in California, though, and now reside here. So
very nice. So I saw one of my coworkers is in Virginia. So all of your schools are closed.
Yes, they're all closed. So parents are having to juggle right now and strategize about how they're homeschooling their kids. Absolutely.
I can't.
Yeah.
It's like a new normal. And there's a lot of people that work from home and it's like, well, not much has changed yet. But then there's other normals, new normals where husband and wife are at home and then all of the kids and there's a certain space that you have to function in. We were laughing the other day, but we're like, I think there's going to be a lot of outside home projects. Gardens are going to look great this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Renee, so many great points that you just mentioned, because people are going to have to alter their schedules. And that's the thing, people have routines where they run or they do things. And there's a distinct difference between like a schedule and a routine, because you can just throw something like you run every day or you do yoga, but a schedule's like 8 to 8:30, 8:30 to 9. And those are good to have because humans, function well off of schedules. So having to re-strategize those schedules and find your own space within that time is so valuable, right? But people are having to figure it out. And I think that's the hard part. It's like just sitting down and like, okay, how do I figure this out? So.
Yeah, 100%. And this actually has nothing to do with what we're going to chat with you about today, but I feel like we need to keep going because the schedule and routine thing, something big is a morning routine. And do you have a morning routine, Summer?
I have a night routine. I'm a night person. So my nights are all work. And most of my days are work too, but I am not a morning person. I'm just not.
I thought I was until today. Apparently I have learned the magic of turning Alexa off in my sleep.
Oh!
I was like, Alexa, when's my alarm set for? She's like, it's not. And I know I said it last night. So
oh, that's funny.
I didn't even tell her to snooze. I just apparently shut the whole thing down.
You're like, boom.
Right? Take that, Alexa.
Right?
Right.
I'll show you who's boss around here.
Right? Come on, Alexa.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I think the beauty about having a routine is you have one that works for you. Some people are morning people, some people are night people. Like Shauna's definitely an evening person, afternoon, and I'm more of an early bird, a morning person. And it's funny because we can kind of see that within each other, especially just kind of when we come to live a little bit more. So
yeah. Oh, totally. Right. And I've always been a night person. So it's my quiet time. It's when most people are sleeping. It's when, I can really focus and just get a lot done. And I'm the kind of person who can work while something else is going on. So I can have the TV on with this exterior noise and sound and like white noise and then be able to focus on this. Mom always used to say, how do you do this? How do you have so much going on? And then I'm like, and to me now I'm like, oh, am I a little, ADHD? I don't know, maybe.
I need like full silence, nothing else. But
really?
That's what makes all of us beautiful and different.
Right. Absolutely. And thanks again for asking me on. I'm really enjoying this conversation. So.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here, and especially now when we need uplifting topics to know that the world is still moving and things are still happening. So tell us more about you and how all this started.
Okay, so My name is Dr. Summer Watson. I am a PhD in clinical psych. I am an author, a podcaster, a coach, a producer of seminars. So I juggle a lot, and I travel a lot. I just got done with a book tour in California before all this stuff yay, came about, and so that was really exciting. Again, I do a podcast, which is really great. It's the Core Women podcast, and Core Women is the company that I developed about at the end of 2018. And so the mission is, it's a unique home for the hearts and souls of women. It really brings women together. I wanted a place. So I'll tell you a little bit about the background of how this kind of the inspiration and the aha moment of Core Women. So I had been for the last 20 something years a military spouse, but before that, I grew up in California. I was born and raised in California, and I was very independent. I went off to Berkeley. I graduated from Berkeley. I got I got a job. I wanted to go to law school. I went back to law school for a little bit back east, and I decided, is this really for me? Is this really something that I want to do? And I got there, and I thought, you know what? I achieved my goal. I got here. But I was also one of those people that, like, gosh, you have to achieve your goal. How can you like drop this and not fulfill what you set out to do? And I was like, this just doesn't align with who I am. Law school is just not me. So I went back home, kind of tucked the tail, and I was just like, oh, it was kind of like swallow your medicine, and it didn't feel right, but at the same time, it felt right. And it was a good decision, because I knew in my heart of hearts that, yes, I wanted to support people in some way, but that just wasn't my way. And so I had been dating somebody in high school, and during our senior year and during all of that, I went back home, and we were still together. And he ended up going off to the Marine Corp, and I ended up working different jobs and yada, yada, yada. And so one thing led to another. He came back and we got married. And so for the next 20 years, I was traveling around the country and the world as a Marine Corps spouse. And so during that time, I ended up getting my master's in human services with an emphasis in counseling. And then I also ended up getting my PhD, but working in nonprofit, for-profit, in mental health hospitals, in the largest California state facility, psych facility in the state of California. So getting a lot of experience under my belt as to how to work with people, how to do program management, how to bring community collaborations together, and really how to run community collaborations, and also work in education, the field of education. So I thought to myself, after 20 years of traveling around the country, we lived in Japan outside of Japan on a small island called Okinawa for 3 years. And after doing all that, I realized, like, what is it that I want to do? Like, it's your time now. Like, what do you want to put together? So I took a break, and I thought, you know what? Because I've worked since I've been 15. Before that, of course, but I had my first job when I was 15, and I thought to myself, all right, take a breath. What do you really want to do here? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? So I decided I would go back home, and I would hang with some of my girlfriends in Newport Beach. We'd just take a little break. And it was hard to get these women together.
Not a bad place to hang out.
Not a bad place to hang out, but it was hard to get these women together because they're all professionals, right? One works in human services, one's a marketing director, one's a lawyer, and we all were sorority sisters, right? So at Cal. And so we came together, we're sitting there, and it wasn't like the fancy dinners. It wasn't like all the exterior stuff that we were doing. It was in the moment that I saw them all in the living room, talking, laughing, having fun. And I thought to myself, that's it. That's it. This is a unique place for the hearts and souls of women. Does every woman have this? Does every woman have this place where they can come together and they can just feel at home? They can fill their hearts and souls with love, joy, trust, and light, and be empowered by this, and just be full and filled with energy. And I thought, you know what? Even I didn't have it all the time. So how can I give this back? how can I create a product and value to give back to community in a way and to women? And I also work with men, don't get me wrong, but I wanted a safe place for women where I created CORE. And CORE is, it's an acronym. So it really just brings people together, and it's a way that women can kinetically connect. And what I mean by that is, and I use that word in particular because kinetic is moving, you know, and we move so fast in the world. So how do we stop? How do we take a breath? And how do we connect through everything that's going on in our world together? How do we bring that together? And then how do we organically learn from one another? Okay, so just through interaction. And then how do we reshape our lives through diverse interaction? We're so different, that we're so diverse, that how do we come together in that diversity? You know, and how do we energize one another to promote one another? So here we are, right? We're doing it. You're doing it. I'm doing it. We're doing this. This is part of our mission, right? So that's CORE. So there I am.
I love it. It is so cool. And thank you for all of the insight into what you were doing before CORE, how it was born, how it bloomed, kind of what ignited that spark, because that is a feeling that you can just feel run through your body and gives you chills. And I mean, even as you're talking about it, I know I felt it, Shauna did, and you feel it. You can just tell the way you talk about it. And it's just so cool to look back on the steps that you took and where you are now, and just hearing how, you know, you had to swallow a little bit when you're like, you know what, I've spent my time, I've studied, and the money, and you know what, you knew that law wasn't your direct path at this time. And I mean, that's a huge thing to set down and trying to figure out what your next step is. So I mean, that takes strength and courage.
It was difficult, and thank you for recognizing that, because I think we all have those moments where it's like, you know, depending on also how you're raised. I was raised by a single mom. She is a very strong woman, and she always said, you know what, if you put action behind your dreams, you can do this. You can do whatever you set your mind to. And she was always there, you know, really just supporting me. But there's times, you know, where it was difficult. It was difficult because, and I'll take you way back. When I was 6 months old, I had a hole in my small intestine. And so I became septic. And so this young mom at 19, she had a baby at 17, my brother, she had me at 19. This young mom kept taking me to the doctor, and they kept sending her away saying, nope, nothing's wrong. She's just got the flu. She's got a cold, whatever. Well, here's the thing. She was young. And I don't know if she was dismissed because she was young or because she was a woman or all of it, right? Well, this baby, me, ended up going into a coma and becoming septic. And she didn't know if I was going to live. It took months to get out of that, months of surgery. And at the end of that, the doctors just looked at her and said, we've done all we can. This was in Los Angeles, California in 1969, if that gives you any idea of how old I am. And she said, she went into the room and she saw the doctors around the crib holding hands, praying. And she said, I've never seen anything like it before. She said, and they said, this is the last thing we can do. This is the last thing we can do for your baby. And I tell you this because she always said, you're my miracle child. So I think when I think about that, I think there's a purpose for me to be here. There's a purpose for me to give back. And throughout my life, although, you know, because of that hole in my small intestines, I've had surgery after surgery after surgery because of the adhesions that grow around things inside. So, but still with all of that, I've been able to achieve so much and have an outlook on life that there's a purpose for me. And my purpose is really, I absolutely love CORE Women. I love the idea of being able to give back. I love the idea of bringing women together. And so when I had that aha moment after traveling around for 20 something years and really lifting my husband up and following his career and being that good military spouse, and, you know, I thought, you know, there are different times in my life where I've had different support groups in that they were all women. And I thought to myself, even when my mom may not have been as present as I would have liked her to be, or maybe I didn't have that friend, we had other women that came into my life that really held me up, and I've held them up, and we've supported each other. And I thought, this is part of the mission. This is what this is all about. But how can I package that and give value back to community? So.
I started to tear up when you were telling that story about the doctors. And I don't know your relationship with your mom, but I think it's telling that clearly from, 6 months old, you had strong women in your life. I mean, I can't imagine walking in and seeing that for my own kids. And
Yeah, it was a
you're
tough.
just a beautiful storyteller. You really paint the image. And I picture your friends sitting in that living room in Newport, and I can see the doctors gathered around. I think that's just such a gift that you have to be able to really create that visualization.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was hard for her. It's hard for my mom too. She was a young woman, and she was in an abusive relationship with my father. And so even at that time, when she was 19 and she had these two kids, she was trying to manage on her own through that relationship. And she ended up getting out of that relationship, which was good, and working her way through it and stuff. And we did have, my brother and I did have a time where we lived with our grandparents, because both our parents were like, here, we just need to take time for ourselves. And they were young. And so finally, when they got back and centered and focused, my mom decided to get us, and so there were different struggles, different things, but still through it all, I'm able to look back and think, I made it. I've done this, you know, and I can tell this story because you know what? I'm not alone. We all have our struggles. We all have our journeys, and we can get through it. Just like now, just like during this time, we're in this together.
Right.
So,
and now more than ever, we need these stories, because I think you have people that are losing hope. Like, what can I hold on to right now? And I think stories like yours are what show that we can overcome things.
right. We absolutely can. And sometimes, we get really inspired by what we hear. And I use this as an analogy. Sometimes we go into like maybe a sermon or something and we're like, yes, I'm so inspired. But here's the thing. And as a doctor of psych and working in the field, I want to make sure that I'm equipping people with skills, or drawing out from them what type of skills they can actually utilize, because we all have different sets of skills, and we have transferable skills. So if you can't work right now, or you're at home, realize that budget you are managing, now you're managing your budget at home in a different way. That program plan that you were creating, you're creating a program plan with your family. These are transferable skills, and we just can't forget, you've got a basket of a toolbox of tools, right? So put them to use. Don't forget about them. And then how do you respond versus react during this time? Because there is a distinct difference about reacting versus responding. And a reaction is, something that's just quick, it's reflexive. A response is take a step back, take a breath, count backwards from 10, 3, 2, 1, whatever you've got to do, and you know what works for you, or figure it out, and then respond, because your end goal is, or you want to think about your end goal with who you're responding to in relation to the person that you're talking to, be it your spouse, your significant other, your children. What is your bigger picture? What's your end goal in relation to your response versus a reaction? And if it's a reaction, then you're getting maybe more of a negative response, or a response will get you the positive response that you probably want. So it's a good time to think about these different things. And I think that not just saying like, oh, we'll get through this, but there are steps to get through this. Don't forget, you can create steps. You've got transferable skills. You've got it. You've got this. Just think about the steps and the strategy that you want to use and apply to pivoting because of a situation that's different and unique.
I think it's so cool, and that's so valuable, because those transferable skills, sometimes a lot of people forget that you can create something new based on what you have and what you're good at and what your strengths are, even if when you start you're not getting paid. I mean, yes, we have a lot of things happening in the world of the career world, and jobs and employment and things, but when
Yes.
you do have to think about how to rebuild or restart, a lot of times thinking about what your strengths are is a great place to start.
Absolutely. You have a foundation. You have a base that you've already created. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah.
sure. And sharing about your mom, just, I mean, that's just another moment. Like when we talk to our guests and it's kind of like generational celebration, we love to hear who our guests that we're highlighting are celebrating themselves too. And what a strong woman, what a strong, incredible woman. And to hear you acknowledge how far you've come and the things that you've done. And you're like, you know what, if I got through that and I can do this, there's a reason and there's a purpose. And,
Yeah.
you know, you don't wake up every day at 110% top of
No.
the game. You know, it takes a lot of, you know, that self-talk over
We
here.
discussed that already. She hits that midday point.
Right.
Yeah. You know, you're such a, I mean, with your wealth of education and experience and community, you can tell you're a nurturer, you're a giver, you give. But how do you know when it's time to recharge, Summer? And what are some signs that you have to be aware of? And how do you do that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I totally know. Like there's times and I'm like, back off, need space. You know, this is me time.
Low
And
battery.
I set my boundaries. So, you know, and I think I'm pretty out there in regards to like, you know, my feelings and what I want and what I need. And so I'm very straightforward that way and pretty readable. So it's like, okay, she needs her time. And I'm really fortunate because I have a husband that really understands that. Like he knows that I love to work. That's what energizes me. But he also knows that, and sometimes he has to remind me too, that you need a break. You need to take a breather. You need to, because this does propel me. This does excite me so much that it's like, go, because I'm so excited. But when I need a break, I take a break. And what I usually do is my husband and I usually set some time during the year and we go on a vacation, a long vacation. And so for the last, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we've gone to either England, Scotland, you know, somewhere where we could actually just take 2 weeks, take a break, and just really enjoy ourselves, be in the moment. We both love to travel. I love to travel. It's like freedom. And I don't care if I get on the road and I'm driving in my husband's truck or my 4Runner. I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. This is freedom. I love taking pictures of my surroundings. I love just being out there and on the road or, you know, in a different country.
So good. You know what recharges you. Go ahead, Shauna.
Oh, I was just gonna say we're gonna get back to traveling one day, hopefully.
Yeah, it's you know, it really is something that brings me peace. It brings me center. It gets me back to where I need to be to refocus. And it allows me to really see how other people live. Having lived in Japan, Okinawa, Japan for 3 years, really gave me some insight about Americans. We just live differently. Japanese live differently, Okinawans live differently, you know, and then I began to travel over there. And that was really when everything started in relation to my travel. And I was able to go to Hong Kong, Kyoto, just a lot of different places where I never thought I'd just experience Lantau Island, you know, so it was really nice being able to experience that and just get away. And at the time, my husband, when he was at war, he came back and I said, hey, honey, we're going to go on a trip. And where did I take him? Tokyo. Oh, I think I took him to Hong Kong at that time, Hong Kong. And he said, no, we're not going. And I said, well, why not? He said, because no. And I said, no, we're going. So I bought the tickets. I did this, I did that. And I was like, let's go. And ever since then, just making him, pushing him to go, he was like, oh, that was so great. So then it was like, okay, we're going to go to Tokyo and then we're going to go to Kyoto and then we're going to go to, and he was all about it. So he got the bug. So I'm like, yay, thank goodness. Because it's such a reprieve. It's so nice to travel and it really does help us both. So once a year, we take a long trip and make sure that we set time aside for each other. So
awesome. That's such a good bug to bite too.
Yeah.
So you talk about kind of cultivating a safe, empowering community with core women. Now, how do you do that? Not in like the physical sense per se, or, face-to-face interaction.
Right. Okay. So there's a couple of ways that I do that. So I do also do seminars. So that is a face-to-face interaction. But outside of that, we can use our digital media so well these days. And just like we're doing now, right? So like you, I have a podcast, and that brings women together. I connect that way. I bring women together through LinkedIn all the time. I'm a connector. So connect that way. I bring women, to meet in relation to coaching, so we can coach together. And then also by the book, so having written a book and being able to talk about that book and being able to have discussion about that book. And also, like I said, the podcast is amazing. And I cannot tell you how many women and men are like, this person needs to be on your podcast, that person needs to be on your podcast, and all of the referrals I get, which is, it's great. It's great. I think I'm almost near my 100th episode. I think I'm on my 90th episode at this point. So I'm getting close. So I'm really excited about that. And in that, and by doing, as you know, by doing podcasts, we're able to share the journeys of other women. We're able to connect other women. Women are talking about these different episodes and what they find inspiring and empowering. And then they reach out to those other women. So that's one way. We also have, the seminars, which I just did. That's face-to-face though. And as I said, through coaching and through the book. So, yeah.
Tell us about the book. I don't feel like we've heard enough about.
Oh, okay.
Is this your first book, Summer?
Huh?
Is this your first book?
It is. Well, of course, for my dissertation, I had to write research and books and all that stuff. But, and that was an interesting one too, because it was about the effects of war on military marriages. So I did something in relation to relationships. So it was a qualitative research project where I really did talk about relationships, what was impacting the relationship, and communication and separation and hierarchy in relation to the military and how that is integrated into the relationship. So that was a really interesting piece to write. And then I also, and I've also written for other newspapers like the San Francisco Chronicle. I did a piece for somebody and co-collaborated with that, and another piece for a Marin newspaper. So I'm writing all the time, but this is a book, actually my first actual book. So it's, yeah, I get real with strong language. And so here's the book, and that's the hook. So what it is it's a strategic approach to understanding your personal beliefs. And what we do is we take the idea of strong language, and we didn't want to call it foul. We didn't want to call it cursing. We didn't want to pose judgment on top of the language. So we called it strong language, and we took the idea of strong language and posed it against your values. And we give strategy in this book about how to kind of understand that, what we mean by that. And what we mean is, if you use strong language, or if you've used strong language, what did that feel like? What did it feel like to use your first strong language word? What were you told about using strong language? Were you told that it's bad and that's it? Was it explained to you? So we go through all of this, through social issues. Do you watch TV that has strong language? Do you listen to comedians that have strong language? Do you read books that have strong language? To Kill a Mockingbird, Scout, the protagonist, used strong language, and her dad, Atticus, was like, okay, this is something she may get over. But what she didn't realize that there are repercussions to using strong language. And so we talk about that in the book. And we talk about, if you choose to use the language, understand why. Okay, that's all we're asking, is just understand why. And through that strategy of understanding why, you can also apply that same strategy and understand your other values, so to speak. Because here's the thing, your values are your foundation. They're what drives you. They're the what gives you strength. They are what you align with when you meet your spouse, or you don't align with when you meet your significant other, or when you go into a job. They have criteria and values in that corporation. So if your values don't align with the values of that corporation, is that going to be a sustainable job? So when we talk about values, it's great to understand your own personal values, because that makes your life so much easier in relation to how you want to live it, and who you want to interact with, and how you want to interact with somebody with a different set of values.
I love it. I'm sitting here thinking, why do I use strong language when I drive?
It's sometimes it's reflexive, but where did you learn that? And how does that make you feel when it, and we go through some of the science too, which is really interesting. So rather than using a neutral word when like you hit your toe or something, using a strong language word actually creates endorphins that will help you reduce pain. So there is a strategy in relation to, or maybe a reflexive strategy in relation to why you use strong language in those instances. So we do go over, the social aspects. We go over a couple of the scientific aspects. We go over some of the research. So it's a short book. It'll take about maybe 2 hours to read, but this is the thing. It gives so much information in a short number of pages and strategy at the back. And here's another thing. This book, and this is a fun thing about this book. This book provides mandalas. So you can color as well, which is also a strategy to kind of bring down angst and to work on yourself and create something beautiful. So
I love all the strategic, things you can implement and use too. It's so useful. I mean, if you're going to do something, I live, sometimes a minimalist life. So anything that comes into our home, we have to have it function, because if it doesn't serve a function, I don't have the space for it. And so, our brain sometimes can be that way too. We have such a big space to learn and things. And then when you can read something and it's fun and it's interesting, then you can apply it in that same day. For anybody listening, if you check out Summer's book on Amazon, I know it's listed, but just read through the reviews. And I think your reviews are really great about the book, because they hit on several different points that, it's going to resonate with people that are like, oh, this is probably cool. I'm going to read about why I'm going to drop the F-bomb 5 times in the next,
exactly
30 minutes or whatever.
Great points. And you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes and Noble. I think you can get it on Kindle. So, it's a lot in a lot of different places. But I love that, and I don't know if I have a copy, but I gave, so this is one of the original copies before I asked folks to actually review it. And when I asked folks to do the official review of the book, it was really interesting. The folks that I asked an MD, I asked somebody who was on PBS, I asked a woman filmmaker who's out of Florida. I asked a range of people, an executive marketer. I asked a range of people just because I really wanted their feedback. I wanted to hear what they had to say. And it was a little nerve-wracking, because I thought, all these people live different lives. They have an interpretation of strong language, but I want to hear it. I want to hear what they had to say. And this was what was really cool. So check this out. So when I went to California, I was in San Jose and San Francisco. And when I was in San Jose, I had these people coming up to the table, from veterans to women to men. And some people would pass the table and go, and I go, hey, are you interested in knowing about this? Do you want to hear more about this? Come on, let's have a conversation. So a couple of older gentlemen, probably in their 70s, who had very traditional jobs, who served as, bankers, or there was another seat by me. One of the guys took a seat. He worked with UCSF years ago and doing something, bringing HMOs to UCSF, right? And he sat down and he said, you know what, let's talk about this book. Let's talk about what this book is about. Let's talk about the interesting aspects of this book, the mission of this book, the value that it'll offer. And we started talking about the book, and he said, you know what, I really like what you have to say. I really want to get 2 copies of this book for my granddaughters, because my granddaughters are 24 and 27, and I want to take this and I want to give each of them a copy, because I think this is of value to them to understand what their values are. And I was like, yeah, but you just never know what demographic you're hitting when you start talking about, a book, your mission, your something that inspires you, what empowers you, what might empower others. So get out there, talk about it, and do your thing. And because we all live our journeys differently, but it was really exciting in relation to this book, who actually is paying attention, who wants to have the conversation about values, because we learn from our parents, our clergy, our educators, but do you value, do you truly believe all the things that you've learned throughout your life? Do you value the same values that parents do? You have the same values that your parents do. You have the same values as your teacher who taught you A, B, and C. Figure that out. It's really important because it will truly help guide your life. And trust me, like if I would have known this earlier, especially when it comes to like maybe relationships, maybe I wouldn't have made the same mistakes. Some of that comes with wisdom and experience, but maybe I would have made different choices if I would have known my values a little better. So.
Such a great point.
Yeah, I feel like we could go on and keep new questions. There's so much depth to your story, and I'm so grateful that we've been able to connect.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the big things with the Red Bra is that we started based on our conversation of the Red Bra giving you strength, whether you're wearing that under your clothes, outside of your clothes. It's your confidence, whether you can see it or not. And so when you think about a moment when you really had to strap on that Red Bra, have that confidence, what's one that comes to mind for you?
I think that Red Bra moment was truly, and I'm going to take us back a little bit to when I was putting out my college applications, and I didn't know where I would get accepted, and I ended up getting accepted except to all the schools that I applied for except for one. And I really wanted to go to UC Santa Barbara at the time because it was it reminded me of my home, which is a beach town, and I wanted to go to another beach town. But when I got accepted to Berkeley, I thought, oh boy, this is a hard decision. I'm going to go. And my grandfather, he's a businessman, and he looked at that and he's like, you're going to go there. You want to go there. And I said, really? Okay, well, all right. That's where I want to go. And I ended up going, and I'll tell you, that first semester was the hardest flipping semester ever. I thought I was going to lose it. My mom was going through some difficult times. I was going back and forth from home to work or to school to try and help her, to try and help support her. I was working 30 hours a semester, taking 17 units, working 30 hours a week, taking 17 units a semester. And I was trying to find my place. I was trying to fit in somewhere. And I was going from ROTC, and I'm thinking, oh, that's not what I want to do. I was going to different, events, to try and find where I fit in, where I could meet that hub of people that I could connect with. And I found my sorority. And my sorority is Alpha Epsilon Phi, and the women there were just amazing. I felt like I was back at home. And again, when I go back to these instances of where I find home, I go back to, the mission of Core Women. And yet that was my Red Bra moment of pull up those bootstraps, get your shit together and go. Do it, do it, even though you're scared, work through it. And I think that, you had asked me previously, like, what advice might I give somebody is if you have a dream, you put action to those dreams. Don't just sit there, don't wallow, don't get stuck in the mud. Seriously, put action, figure out action, ask somebody, what can I do? Ask for help. If you need it, ask for help, but put action behind your dream and what inspires you, what excites you.
Beautiful. I love that you really reflected too on what your moment was. It's not just, it easily could have been, developing Core Women, but you really thought about all the experiences and how you found.
Yeah. And I loved it. And that Red Bra moment was, you know what? I graduated. I achieved that goal. I was like, yeah, I did this, and I was able to go out in the world. And when I stepped foot on that campus, I really felt like, should I be here? Should I be in the midst of all these amazing minds and people? And I thought, yeah, I belong here. I was given this opportunity. I'm going to use it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to work my way through it. And let me tell you, that, like I said, that first semester was so trying. I was on academic probation that first semester because I was like, you know, and my support system, my mom was just, she was drowning at that time. And I thought, you got to do this. You got to pull yourself out of this. And I was able to do it. So trust me, we all go through our things, but in the end, if you keep putting action behind those dreams and staying focused, you can do it. You can do it.
Oh, Summer, this is so good. And I know that our viewers are just going to listen to this interview and just hear you and just have that, be able to grasp onto that glimmer of hope and just have that extra motivation. And I mean, your inner self-talk is so on point. It's incredible. And I love that you've shared that inside with us a little bit along the way in every little bit of the journeys that you've shared with us in your stories, because it's so important. Because, you know, on the outside, it can look like, oh man, it's so easy for them. They just show up, they just do it. And a lot of times, I mean, more often than not, that's not the case. There's a lot of inside work that goes on.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I want to thank you both. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Shauna, for inviting me here to tell my story. You know, many times we're asking people, you know, come and tell your story. And not many times like, do I get to tell mine? And so I really like this format. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here with the both of you today. So thank you so much. And yes, come join me on Core Women, on the Core Women podcast. I'd love to have you.
We would love to. And Summer, please take a second, tell our viewers, whoever's listening in, where they can find more Summer.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. So you can find Core Women on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But I believe on Twitter, it's called Core Women 1. You can also go to corewomen.com and check out the website. But if you ever need to reach me, or if you want to connect with me, you can also DM me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Instagram all the time. So yeah, it's a great place to find me. And yeah, reach out, please connect. And again, the book is, hold on. FBA, Get Real with Strong Language. And you can find that at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Just type it in and it'll populate online. So thank you.
So awesome. So we're going to make sure to link all of that stuff up over at the Red Bra Project on our Instagram page. We're going to put it on our blog coming out next week, featuring Summer and highlighting all that she's done and all that she serves and does. If you're listening to this story and you resonated, you enjoyed it, please give us a like, share with somebody who needs this story in their life today, because stories just really help to empower and help us all along our journeys. And make sure to subscribe so you can get all of the show reminders of the Red Bra Project. We feature women from all over the globe and amazing stories like Summer's. So Summer, we wrap up every show with a quote, and today's quote for you is: leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. John C. Maxwell. And we thought that was just incredibly fitting for you, because you are just, you have a natural ability to empower others. So thank you for sharing that with the world.
Thank you so much. That's really touching. Thanks so much. I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us, Renee. Always great to see you.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.